Today we're going to be formatting our papers and making sure they are formatted correctly, both as a page, but then also for our works, citing our works correctly. Now, the nice thing is you live in a digital age where there are a lot of resources available to you, and one of the best resources available is called OWL. It's the online writing lab from Purdue College in Indiana. But they have compiled quite a bit of resources here for you, even if you just go to owl.purdue.edu. If you have any questions about particular issues that might be unique to your situation, this would be a good place for you to figure that out. And really, even as you move beyond just this year of English, you could go back here and let's say you have a class that says instead of MLA format, I want you to write an APA format. And you might be like, well, I've only ever done MLA, so what's the difference with MLA and APA? This website would give you a lot of good resources for that. But as it says for MLA formatting, it talks about how the paper should be formatted. And the reason MLA is used is that so that we can have some sort of common standard by which we are all using to format our papers, to create our papers. Because ultimately, it should not be any like pizzazz on your paper that makes your paper stand out. It should be the words that you use that help your paper to stand out. So with that, let's go back to our Google Doc. And the first thing you want to make sure to do is to title it in the upper left-hand corner. And even if you're not quite for sure what you want to title it, you could certainly just title it Argumentative Essay for now. But this could help you then to search for it. If you can't find it very well, you can get back on your Google Drive and use Argumentative Essay to find it. So whatever you feel like you would most easily search for would be what you want to title it there. Next, on the page itself, before I do anything, one of the things that it says for MLA format here is the font size should be 12 point. And then it tells you to use a legible font. Arial is something that is fine.
Awesome.
It's okay.
Awesome. It's Arial.
Others might prefer something else though. I prefer Times New Roman.
Comic Sans, no.
Do not use Comic Sans in this situation. But you'll notice it did say size 12 font, and using that at the beginning of your paper might make it easier so that you don't have to highlight anything and try to change it. The next thing we're going to do is to go to line spacing, and that is this button here. And everything within the paper is double spaced. Everything. Now, with that being said, you need no extra spaces then in between paragraphs, after your title, before your title. No extra spaces are necessary. You go back and look at the example paper that they have here, and you'll notice no extra spaces. There's their title. No extra space because it's already double spaced. There's a paragraph. Paragraphs are indented. So we know where a new paragraph is. You don't need an extra space.
I told you this in narrative writing, and yet there were still a lot of extra space paragraphs.
So now that we have double space, let's make sure that we have our page numbers. I don't know if you saw that in the example there. Go ahead and go to Insert, then go down to Header and Page Number, and then go to Page Number. And then because we do not have a title page, we will include a page number on the first page, and that is our top left option there. There's our page number, and then we actually want to move the cursor before the page number, and we put our last name. Once we have that, we can click off of our header, and anytime there's a new page now, it automatically will number our pages for us. Occasionally I'll get a student that says, my numbers aren't changing, and that's because you went into the header and typed a 1. If you go into the header and type your last name and then a 1, every page will have your last name and a 1 on it, even if it's page 65. It'll still say rows 1, or your last name and 1. So then on our first line on the top left-hand side of our page, we do our first and last name. On the next line, you would do your teacher. You can do Mr. Rose and Mrs. Baird. You can put one or the other. It really doesn't matter. We're not going to be offended either way. However, if you're like, well, I want to make sure Mrs. Baird grades this, so I'm just going to put her name, it doesn't quite work like that. We'll be splitting them up differently. So that is on the next line. You put your instructor. The line below that, you put the class. Now, for a college class, usually you have a specific, abbreviation for that class. But for this, you really could do a couple of things. You could do ELA 2. You could do third hour. You could do both, I suppose, but you have to be careful about how you separate them, so I would choose one or the other. For this, I'm just going to do ELA 2. And then you put the date. You can do it international style, where you do day, month, year. Or you could do it in the Americanized style, where you do month, day, comma, year. Either way, notice we are not abbreviating. We are not putting numbers for the months. So don't do any slashes, 3/27/29. Don't do dashes. Type out the month, the day, and the year. On the very next line, no extra spaces, we want to center, and this is where our title will go. You may not have a title now, and that's completely okay. That might be something that after you've written a little bit more, you have a title, but the title needs to be relevant for your specific essay. It should not just say title. It should have something in regards to what you are writing about. On the very next line, you go back to the left indent. So notice we do not keep the whole page center indented, center aligned. We don't do right aligned. We don't do justified. That's typically for newsprint. We do left align. We press the tab button. This is what it should look like. And again, you go back to our example here from this well-renowned website, and that's what it ends up looking like. You have name, you have teacher, you have class, you have date. Notice they went day, month, year, the more international style, no comma needed in that case. They have the title, and they have their paragraphs. No extra spaces, top right corner, last name, and page number. So now, what we need to do is, if you put a placeholder there for your introduction, that's great. Kind of like this is. This is not how my actual paper should start. But you should press enter onto its own line, and then we are going to do insert, break, page break. The reason we are doing this is because Google Docs will remember that we want whatever comes next to be on its own page, which we do. So when you go back to write the rest of your paper, it will always keep your works cited page, which is what we're about to put in, on its own page. So we insert page break, and that takes us to a new page. You can go back and add before this, and it'll always move this to a new page whenever necessary. Once you get to your new page, go ahead and center align again and type the words works cited. Yes, it should be on our second page now. You need a works cited, one, because it increases your ethos. People are more likely to trust you because they know it's not just you saying it. You used other sources. So you also want to avoid plagiarism and want to give credit to those sources. And also, if somebody was skeptical about your argument and think, oh, is this really something somebody else said? You're basically providing an address for them to go back to, a place where they can go back and check your sources if they wanted to. So those are many of the reasons why it would be important to have a works cited page. All right, so let's say my topic is about whether or not the NCAA should ban the storming of courts. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this before. It's basketball season. Of course, it doesn't really happen in the tournament. But during the regular season, if there's a big upset, then a lot of times the student section will get so excited that they'll actually spill onto the court. Now, a couple of years ago, 2015 to be exact, K-State got into a little bit of hot water because one of their players sort of jumped into KU players before they were able to get off of the court. And so people were starting to become concerned about safety. Now, regardless of what my opinion is, I found my articles that have the two sides. One here is from Athletic Business that says, it's time to finally ban court storming. My other is from Fox Sports that says, to those now screaming for a court storming ban, you're wrong. So you see, clearly, we have the two, no, there's an article down here.
Okay.
We have our two sides of the argument. The question then is, if these are the two articles I'm using, how do I put them here? Obviously, we can add more than just two articles. Now, one thing that the OWL Purdue shows us is Citation Machine. So if you go to citationmachine.net, that is where you will find this. And go to Create Citations, and then MLA, because that is the type we are using for this class. You don't actually have to sign up for anything. When you click MLA, should lead you to a site that looks like this. Now, you see you have a bunch of different options there up at the top for what type of source you are citing: a book, a magazine, a newspaper article, a website, a journal, a film, other. So that would be like a YouTube video, which again you probably shouldn't use unless it's very reputable. This is Citation Machine, citationmachine.net. No. So you can just watch sort of what I'm doing here, but I'm going to take one of mine here. I'm going to copy, Command-C, the web address, and I'm going to paste it here, Command-V. I'm going to click, search websites, and it found it. So I'm going to select it. Notice, because it's using a computer program, it will find some things, but not necessarily everything. We found citation data for these things we could not find for these. So even using something like this, you always have to make sure the correct information is there. For instance, this does not even have an article title. The website title is incorrect. You are being redirected? No, that is not what my website title should be. So I will actually have to go and put the information in. So opinion, it's time to finally ban court storming. It's time oops, put that in the wrong order. It's time to finally ban court storming. Who is my author? Up here, Derek Redd. R-E-D-D, Redd. Now, if you notice, I just kind of scanned down. First off, website title. That is where I would put athletic business. Do they have that as one word? I think there's a space there. Publisher, sponsor, typically the same thing, but a lot of times if you go down to the bottom of a page, you can see who is sponsoring it. Sometimes you'd be surprised who sponsors various websites, but in this case, it's not anything new. It's also athletic business. Athletic business is the resource for athletic, fitness, and recreation professionals. So I will just type that in again. Make sure it includes the URL. When was it published? And up here it says January 2018. Don't just leave that. Maybe it gives us a more specific date. And you'll notice down here at the bottom, it does. January 15, 2018. So we go back to citation machine, 15th of January, 2018. And then click Create Citation. We'll say view a sponsored message. Hopefully this isn't long, 30 seconds. So the cost of using something for free.
At American Family Insurance, we understand what it takes to make your first home, your second home, or your dream home a reality. It's the same as it takes to protect it. To protect your new life, your future, your dreams.
All right, that is now done. How do I get out of it?
I think you
Oh,
click that arrow.
I have to click something here. Oh, there we go. I'm done. And you'll notice it created my citation down here. And it shouldn't be any information that's surprising. We have our author name, we have the title, we have both the website title and the publisher, we have the date, and we have the URL. You'll also notice that as what happens on a works cited page, it's almost a reverse paragraph where the first line is all the way to the left, but any lines after are indented. Now I'm actually going to keep this here because there's a certain order your citation should go in as well. And it's alphabetical order by the first word. Now I say first word instead of just author's last name because in some cases when you can't find an author or the author is an organization, then the title of the article comes first. So it's the first word of the title that gets put within the alphabetical order, possibly with author's last names. So my other website was this Fox Sports one. You can see it refers to the Kansas State situation, 2015. So we put in Command C, Command V, found a website here. Let's see what information it gets. And you see it basically was able to take everything. However, you still need to double check whether that information is correct. So to those now screaming for a, oops, just trying to see the whole thing, court storming ban, you're wrong. Yep, that's the title. Author. Now notice here it put author as Fox Sports because that's the corporation. However, if we go back here, we see, and it didn't say it at the beginning for some reason, I think it kind of loaded weird, but we do see that the person who wrote this is Reed Forgrave. So I'm going to go back here and put that name in here because that is a more specific author. Anytime you can give a name, give a name. Make sure I spelled that correctly. Reed Forgrave. The website title is Fox Sports. Who owns Fox Sports? Fox Media LLC. I would actually put that as the publisher, what we see down here. You could do Fox Sports Interactive Media LLC. Either of those would be acceptable. Fox. Make sure I wrote that in there correctly. Fox Media LLC. Oh, it actually didn't have a comma, so we're going to leave that comma out. Has the website or the URL, and then is that the right date for when it was published? Go back to the very top. February 24th, 2015. February 25th, 2015. It's kind of interesting. I'm going to put the 24th since that's the date that I can see. It might be pulling from a different date, and I'm not saying that's not accurate, but since they have this date up here, 11:18 p.m., I'm going to put that date here. And then I click Create Citation. All right, so now we see our two citations here. I'm going to click Copy All. And it says Copy to Clipboard. Now, finally, we're going back to our Google Doc. We're going to see what happens if we paste. That looks pretty darn good. That is what it should look like. You notice the author's last names are in alphabetical order. It's on its own separate page that's titled Works Cited. It's Times New Roman. Now, I will say if it does not indent subsequent lines, you will have to do that manually. If you need help with that, feel free to ask us. The other thing is if you don't want to use an automatic machine like that, you want to do it yourself, go back to Al Purdue. They can tell you how to cite. You'll notice here, MLA Works Cited, go down to electronic sources like web publications, and it will give you some of the guidelines. Author, title in quotation marks with a period at the end. Italicized title of container, other contributors, so on and so forth, and it gives you some examples. So, we should be able to write our paper. It'll keep our works cited on its own page and have our works already cited there, which leaves us then, we know that part's done, we can then use the quotes from those pretty confidently that we'll do it correctly.